I went to a local market that has a parking lot such that there's really only one way in, and you have to, there's basically one parking space that is the most prominent in the parking lot. And there was a big guy sitting in that most prominent space in a minivan with the driver's door propped open, and he kind of had one of his legs hang out of the door. A really big guy, very masculine seeming, seemed very strong, kind of time-worn, embattled, embittered. I don't know the guy. I know that I walked out of my way not to walk past him, which is the natural way to get into that market. Anyone who's ever been at this market will know that the way you would normally go into the market through that parking lot is right past his open door where he had his leg out. And I noticed both on my way in and my way out, it was a beautiful day and there were a lot of people around, that I was not the only one, that no one was walking right by him, which they normally would have done. And the thing is, he wasn't just a big, potentially threatening dude who was doing something kind of display-like with his door open and his leg out, but he was also wearing fishnet stockings and I think a mini skirt and garish makeup on his face. And that didn't make him a woman, but what it did do, I suspect, was made a lot of people more confused about their own responses. If that had just been a guy dressed like a guy, that guy dressed like that guy doing that thing, it would have been read as what it was, which was a subtle threat to really everyone, but certainly women. And because he was dressed in sort of feminine tropes, nothing happened. Now, would anything have happened? Would an employee from the store have come out and told him that he needed to close his door and go somewhere else if he had just been dressed as a guy? I don't know. Maybe not. But I think the chances that this would happen with him dressed the way he was are much, much lower. And this is downstream of diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. Because until yesterday, everyone knew what a woman was and that putting on a skirt doesn't make you a woman. And as we've said over and over and over again, this does not deny actually, truly trans people. But this man, no. This man was doing something aggressive and threatening in a public place in a way that made it less likely that anyone would call him out on it.
All right. This only works at the rule of thumb level. Mm-hmm. But all of the trans people that I have known well enough to really say that I know them as people, mm-hmm. to a person, have made every effort to fit in to their chosen gender as seamlessly as possible, right? What you're describing is somebody who has weaponized their chosen gender and raises questions about why they chose it. In other words, is the point that you get a weapon for doing this? Is the point that you get to be a burly guy who people steer clear of, but now you get to make them feel uncomfortable about it because, is it transphobia that's causing them to do that? Right. So I guess the question is, every time I see somebody for whom their presentation is aggressive, in which the point is not to minimize the sense of discordantness would be the word I was looking for. Yep. Anytime somebody is aggressively utilizing those tropes so that they are in conflict with how they present, such that they would know that that's what they're doing, it raises a question about why they're doing it.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's exactly right. So just one more note about this. I've been reading of late some historical fiction about World War II and pre-World War II era. I think I mentioned a number of weeks back about a novel about Hedy Lamarr, and I've also been reading some fiction written during the Gilded Age, and all of these books have strong female characters. What?
When you say Hedy Lamarr, it is almost impossible not to quote Harvey Korman, say Headley.
in
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles, yes. Yeah, not that Lamar, the real Lamar.
Well, but he spent that whole movie correcting people because of that exact problem.
Yes, but, exactly. Yeah. So books ranging from 1880s through 1940s, written either about that era or during that era with strong female characters, which reveal, of course, that there have been strong women who have been, fighting against the particular strictures of the cultural expectations of them because of the sex they were born to for a long time. And I was reminded with running into this guy in this parking lot of this flyer of a 1914 feminist rally that a few years back Barry Weiss actually posted. And if you can show my screen here, this is from 1914. What is feminism? Come and find out. First feminist mass meeting at the People's Institute at Cooper Union, 1914. And the topics, the subject is supposedly breaking into the human race. And the topics given by a series of speakers are the right to work, the right of the mother to her profession, the right to her convictions, the right to her name, the right to organize, the right to ignore fashion, I love that one, and the right to specialize in home industries. I don't know what that last one means, but all the rest of them, I think, are extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I could probably figure it out. I welcome someone telling me what the right to specialize in home industries means, because it seems like that is the thing that women have always been, in fact, canalized into.
Right. No, that specialize within home industries?
Yeah. Anyway, but the rest of them, the right to her own name, to her convictions, to organize, to ignore fashion, to work, and the right of the mother to her profession, not just to work, but to work even after you've become a mother. This is feminism in 1914. This is what women were fighting for. And in response to Barry back in early 2018, so this is several years old at this point, why is my computer not coming up? I said, okay, so in feminism 1914, we had the right to work, to have convictions, to keep one's name, to organize, and to ignore fashion. Feminism in 2018, and this holds today, unfortunately, the right to ignore science, to attain power through victimhood, and to make arguments that nobody is allowed to dispute. So this was sort of just as, early 2018. Maybe this was before actually Me Too really came. No, Me Too had happened. Me Too was full swing, and Me Too was a movement that we needed, and it was not the movement that we needed, right? Like Me Too needed to say some things to the world.
We needed a Me Too movement, not the one we got.
Yeah, exactly. And so in sort of the thick of that, there was a, hashtag believe all women moment, as if women, like all the other human beings out there, that is to say the other 50%, can't and wouldn't lie for personal profit under some circumstances, not all, but also not none, right? And so that, what feminism has become is terrible. It's tragic. But it's also just become even more ridiculous by the idea now that, if women get that right, and you're a dude, and you don't have anything else to recommend to the progressive stack, well, then all you have to do is put on fishnets, and now you got to believe me, not only that I'm a woman, but anything else I want to claim. Mm-hmm. So, that's part of what, and it's not entirely on your doorstep, DEI guys, but the diversity, equity, and inclusion community has brought us that nightmare, which is effectively a hostile and alienating space. It's not just a workspace, it's an everything space. Hostile and alienating to everyone who is interested in being good and doing good for each other.
So I want to definitely resonate with your point about hostile work environment and larger environment. But I also want to point out, it's not just that DEI creates a hostile work environment. That is its mechanism of action. That's its MO.
Yes.
Right? It's modus operandi.
Yes.
And the point is, that's how it gains power, is by creating an environment in which you are unsafe, and in which what happens is, at the point that the mob focuses on you, you are now in danger not only of being accused of terrible things, but losing your right to earn, losing your ability to advance, right? So the point is, what you want to avoid is the anger of the mob, which causes you to become their tool or to be cast out.
Yes.
And so it reminds me a little bit, there was I think it was the DeLillo affair at the beginning of the George W. Bush administration. There was this one Democrat who had been brought in, and I forgot what he did, but something in the White House. And he wrote an article at some point. He was very alarmed that there was no policy arm of the administration. It was all PR going on in the White House.
Was it Bush too?
Yeah, it was all spin. And there were no discussions about what we should be doing as a nation to solve X, Y, and Z problem. All it was basically, how do we accomplish these goals that we walked through the door with, right? And it alarmed him. And anyway, he wrote about it, and terrible things happened, of course, because you're not allowed to say those kinds of things. But somewhere in that affair, I believe that's where this comes from. The point was, not only are these people abusing power, it's who they are. Yeah. That's what this is. This administration is about the abuse of power. I would say the same thing about the Biden administration, incidentally. But the fact is, claiming that we have a hostile work environment and we need to render it unhostile, as you are making that environment hostile. And really the point is, you want to make it hostile and you want to be immunized from anybody pointing out that that's what you're doing. And so the whole point is, what we're trying to do is create an unhostile environment. No. Quite the opposite.
Preemptively claim that your goals are the opposite of what they are, or the opposite of what you are actually going to do. Perhaps it's just collateral damage, even if maybe you just don't even care that it's hostile now. And I guess the one final thing I would say here before we move on is, we were getting there, right? And this again is a point that we've made a lot. But the 20th century saw tremendous advances. Women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, workers' rights, children's rights, all of these demographics and all of these real pressing human rights issues that really the liberals won.
Yep.
We did it. Well, we weren't there.
We did it. We made the world better.
We weren't there. And in fact, there are a lot of conservatives out there, vast majority of them, who adopted those values as part of their own. And are now the defenders of them.
Yep.
Because what we have now is people who call themselves on the left destroying it, undoing the gains. So many people now would never say, yeah, I'm a feminist, or would question whether or not we need movements to maintain the hard-won civil rights that happened, have happened throughout history, but came to a fore in the 1960s. And these are not by and large bad people or mean-spirited people. They're just fed up with the lies that they're being told about what is actually happening. So, stop undoing history. Stop pretending that we haven't already gotten a tremendous amount of the way that we need to go. And, if you're a scientist, consider doing science. Consider actually, when you're trying to figure out if something is true, like, for instance, there are, not enough, however you define that, black faculty among the sciences, among scientists. What are your possible explanations for why? And you need to come up with all of them. You can't come up with one and stick with that one and claim that you're doing science, because you're not.
Yep, absolutely. We need science back in science.
Yeah.